Hello, welcome to Fully Alive with Yin Yoga, a practice designed to help you really feel vitality and aliveness. So we'll start in heart bench. So for heart bench, you'll need two blocks. One of the blocks goes on the tallest height, and that will support the base of your skull. Go ahead and lay back. The other block runs along the length of your spine, and the lower edge of that block is no lower than where your ribs meet your spine. You find a spot that feels relatively comfortable. If it's okay in your body to bring the soles of your feet to touch, do that. Let your knees drop out to the sides. If you like the feeling of stretch in your inner thighs, but this isn't so good on your knees, you could place a blanket or extra blocks under your thighs. Let your palms face the sky. And let your chin nestle toward the notch of your throat. What happens, Lee, if we move this a little closer? Yeah, in a little bit. I don't know if that helps your chin drop a little bit more. So inhale and receive the breath deeply. And exhale, sigh. If you like, you could place one hand on your belly, one hand on your upper chest, and just take this opportunity to direct the breath into each area of your body. So as you inhale, let the belly fill. As you continue inhaling, let the rib cage expand. And as you continue inhaling, let the upper chest fill. As you exhale, the belly drops, the ribs squeeze in, and the breath just seeps out of the upper chest. Just endeavoring to get the breath to be deep and full, like you could direct it into each of the cavities in the body, as if you could direct the breath into all the caverns in the body. Places where you might be, storing or hiding things that haven't been processed or dealt with. The breath is life, right? Life in this body, as we know it, starts with our first breath in. And life in this body, as we know it, ends with our last breath out. And every moment of your life in between is connected with the breath. And so here, getting the breath to move as deeply and fully as possible could be symbolic of committing to a full and deep life, right? A full life has everything on the continuum. Tremendous joy and excitement and delight, and also profound discomfort or anguish and pain. Nobody on planet Earth seems to get only the good stuff. And so we have to make peace with the reality of life. And so maybe getting breath to move deeply and fully is building a capacity to be with all of the ups and downs with life. So letting the breath be really quite expansive, and not just letting the breath be expansive, but then also feeling how you feel as you move the breath deeper. It's entirely possible that simply by moving the breath, you'll feel things. You might feel delight. You might feel anxious. You might feel doubt. You might feel irritation. It's important to let yourself just be however you are. Feel whatever you feel. Not assume that you're supposed to be a certain way. It's like making friends with yourself, making peace with yourself, letting yourself be how you are. We make a distinction in our language between body and mind and heart. It's possible that these are different aspects or ways of relating with the same thing. That The breath might actually be a vehicle to unite all of them, a way to pull all of you back together. So it's been suggested that the shape heart bench could maybe increase the depth of the breath. So it could be a really nice shape to come into anytime you want to energize a little or get the breath to move deeper. So let's inhale here and exhale, sigh. Go ahead and bring the soles of your feet to the floor. Press your elbows down, tuck your chin into your throat. And just come to sit for a moment and feel that. Yeah. So again, with this idea of experiencing your life fully, we'll practice Kapalabhati. This is a kriya, a cleansing technique. It's not appropriate if you are pregnant, if you have uncontrolled high blood pressure, or if it doesn't feel right to you. You could just have a few moments of conscientious breathing. For Kapalabhati, you might like placing a hand on your belly, just so you feel as you inhale, the belly comes forward, and as you exhale, the belly comes back. And some people are reverse breathers. They inhale and the belly comes back, and they exhale, release it forward. So you really want to work on inhaling, the belly comes forward, exhaling, draw the belly back. Now, instead of paying attention to inhale with exhale just happening, we'll pay attention to exhale, and the inhale will just happen. So Kapalabhati is rapid, successive exhalations through the nostrils, almost like you're continuously blowing out candles through your nose, which you would never do. But this is the breath. So close your eyes. Inhale, the belly comes forward. Exhale, draw the belly back. Inhale just about halfway and begin pumping. So rapid successive exhalations. Listen for the silence of the inhale. You might need a tissue during this exercise, and that's entirely appropriate, entirely beneficial. See if you can relax the skin of your face, relax your forehead. Keep the ear tips as if on puppet strings elevating. The movement happening in the belly, not so much the shoulders. We'll start to slow down this first round, almost like pumping the brakes on an icy road before coming to a stop. You could release your hand or keep it there. Just feel the breath. Notice the effect. One thing, when you pay close attention on your yoga mat, you realize that everything affects everything. And so you can let your awareness grow so subtle, you notice the changes as they arise. So let's practice a second round of Kapalabhati, maybe hand on the belly, just to really make contact. Inhale, the belly comes forward. Exhale, draw the belly back. Inhale just about halfway, and begin pumping the diaphragm. So Kapalabhati is, it's a heating breath, and Yin Yoga is a cooling practice. I offer Kapalabhati just as a chance, as a possibility to bring inhale and exhale back into balance. Sometimes extra exhale gathers in the body, creating lethargy or heaviness. But then also maybe the words we don't say or the feelings we don't allow could get stuck in the belly. And so this might actually just skim off the top, whatever's been closest to the surface. So in your practice, you could dive a little deeper. Relax the jaw just a little longer. I like to sometimes do the practices a little bit past what feels polite, a little bit into what might provoke some emotional response. And start to slow it down. And exhale. And feel it. Don't just do it and feel it. So now, as you're ready, we'll switch into praying mantis pose. So for praying mantis pose, you'll need both of your blocks. I'll suggest, if you're not quite sure, try both of the blocks on the medium height. The blocks go shoulder distance apart. Some people, based on how their bones fit together, based on how they feel stable, will have the blocks turned out or in or sideways. So your job is to figure out how you feel stable. Lee's going to bring her elbows to the edge of the block that's a little closer to her knees. You could just keep your knees forward so that when you come down, it's more like a child's pose. However, if it's okay in your body, walk your knees further back so that your knees are right beneath your hip points. And then elbows on the edge of the block. You can keep your hands forward at first. Let your chest drop down. And you'll see there's a nice sway in the body. You could stay here with your hands forward, or you'll notice if Lee brings her thumbs to the back of her neck or the back of her heart, that there's even more opening here. So you get to choose what feels appropriate for you. Praying mantis pose, getting the armpit chest to open. So energy is believed to run through the body in pathways that yoga would call nadis. Chinese medicine might call those same pathways meridians. So energy pathways in the body that direct the flow of energy or prana or chi throughout the body. And it's possible that different shapes are influencing different meridians. And it's possible that different meridians are influencing the function, the functionality and the quality of energy that actually goes to different organ systems. So it's possible that this shape is having some effect on the lung meridian, the energy pathway that is believed to direct energy to the lungs. Also the heart, also the pericardium. Pay attention to how your breath moves here. And throughout this entire practice, let yourself feel what you feel. So there's nothing you shouldn't feel. There's no reason you shouldn't feel what you feel. So rather than trying to be a certain way, let yourself be how you are. Become familiar with your own patterns, your own perspectives. With time, you might be able to sink a little bit more. And the idea for me of fully alive is actually perceiving through the senses, actually feeling. It might be our feelings that are most closely related to our humanity. So letting yourself feel what you feel all of the ways that you feel, instead of deciding this is a good feeling or this is a bad one. Instead of thinking that you're a good or a not good person for having a particular emotion. At least when you're on your yoga mat, just let yourself be how you are. So let's inhale here and exhale, sigh. Start to walk your knees toward the blocks enough that you could get your elbows off the blocks. And just come to some shape that is restful. It might be like a child's pose. You might just sit on your heels. And if you feel like you need to move a little bit and would like to do a downward dog in between, abide your intuition. Let your yoga practice take you closer to your inner knowing, your inner wisdom. So with the possibility of inspiring lots of feelings, let's come up onto hands and knees. And we'll practice dragon pose. So you might like both of the blocks near the top of your mat. You'll step the right foot forward and sink the top of the left thigh down. So you're wanting to feel a stretch through the top of the left thigh, the hip flexor muscle group, the quadricep muscle group. You don't want to feel your knee. You're welcome to bring padding underneath your knee. You could place the padding underneath the shin so the knee is elevated. You might have both hands framing the front foot. The blocks could be on the tall height. You might arc up and let your head drop back. You might have the blocks lower. You might come onto your elbows. If you're in this shape and you don't feel stretch through the top of the back thigh, you might bring both hands to the inside of the foot. Walk your right foot to the right a little bit if that helps you open the left hip flexor area. Yeah, so coming into the shape that allows you in a safe and appropriate way to sink into opening the tissue that we are seeking to open. The stomach and the spleen energy pathways are believed to run along the front of the legs. So possibly the stomach and the spleen energy pathways are getting some quality of tension. So tension and compression are the two of the main forces that we use to influence energy in the body, two of the main stressors. There's also a quality of compression through the top of the right thigh, like into the groin, the hip flex, or the inner thigh. So the liver and the kidney pathways run along the inner leg. So maybe there's a possibility that there's some influence of the energy along those meridians as well. Each of the organs, each of the meridians is believed to rule over a particular emotion as well, which at first glance might sound absurd to a Western mind. We might think organs don't rule over emotions. But we know about something like a butterfly is in the belly. We have the felt embodied experience of emotions tied up with our organs. So you don't have to believe it. But dive into your own experience to really perceive what's there, what's true for you. It's through our organs of perception that we know our world. What I think is really interesting is that we'll say things like, "Oh, that makes sense to me." And sense actually implies our organs of perception, our sensory experience. So to say something makes sense to me might have less to do with logic and reason, and might have more to do with embodied wisdom, might have more to do with your intuition. So especially when you practice yoga, let the practice be an opportunity to connect with your senses, to come back to your senses. So let's inhale here and exhale, sigh. Just for a moment, draw your hips back. Keep your right foot forward. You might walk the blocks in too. And roll your ankle, squeeze your toes. And we'll go right into a pose that's designed to open the outer hip. So we'll transition now. Go ahead and get some weight back forward onto that right foot. You can move the blocks out of the way as appropriate. From here, start to walk your right foot over toward your left wrist. So your shin, your ankle, your knee come to the floor. For most people, walking the back leg longer behind you is really helpful. For most people, that heel lined up with the sitting bone is appropriate. We're seeking to feel a stretch through the right outer hip, like deep in the butt cheek, under the butt cheek. You could place a support under that sitting bone. What's really important is we're not ever trying to stretch the knee. Nobody needs more flexible knees. So if you feel it in your knee, you could bend your left knee, bring it out to the side. Figure out how to feel it in your hip and not your knee. Go ahead and walk your hands forward. So coming back to your senses, finding what makes sense to you. It has been suggested that emotions, the word emotion means energy in motion. And maybe your emotions are actually embodied wisdom. It's been suggested that it's impossible to have an emotion without a corresponding physical sensation. So possibly your feeling of aliveness is somehow tied to your emotion, somehow tied to what you feel. And so utilizing your yoga practice as a chance to connect with your feelings, both sensate and maybe emotion. It's interesting that we use this word feeling to connote physical sensation, but then also like an energetic quality, like the feeling of sunlight on your skin isn't exactly touch, or the feeling of like a pulse, like a vibration. And we use the word feeling, of course, to talk about emotions. And we use the word feeling when we even mean like intuition, like, oh, I had a feeling that would happen. And so there's something about our feelings that really is intuitive and embodied. And it's possible, I believe it's entirely possible, that by practicing yoga, you become more aware of your feelings, more connected to your feelings, and then you can become more intelligent. You can become guided more by your feelings. Notice if your jaw clenches. Notice if your brow furrows. Notice if you hold your breath. It is perhaps through our feelings that we do find our humanity. Like instead of being so obsessed with robotic speed and the perfection of our computers or smartphones, we could actually come into the gooey, soft, sometimes fragile or vulnerable feelings that make our humanity, or part of our humanity. Go ahead and walk your hands under your armpits, press into the floor. Lift your torso, come back onto hands and knees. Give yourself a couple of moments. Maybe you drive the heel back in space. Wiggle the foot. Yeah, and then as you're ready, we'll step the left foot forward. So we'll practice those same two poses in that order. And the left side of your body will be its own experience. Don't expect or demand the left side to be like the right side. You'll only be disappointed. So again, you might have the blocks framing the front foot, blocks of any height. You might have support under the back shin. Could be really interesting to notice the kinds of thoughts that bubble into your mind inside of the different shapes. Like when you're in a pose like this or a shape like this, do you often think about a particular person or a specific memory? Or do you have an emotional response? Do you feel angry? Do you feel riddled with doubt? There are so many feelings, so many emotions that maybe in the course of a day we don't allow ourselves to feel, or we don't know how to share with others. And you don't have to share them with anyone. But it seems really healthy to at least acknowledge them yourself. Because there are so many things that we don't necessarily share with other people, we could believe that no one else experiences them. And then we could feel like we're all alone, isolated in what feels almost negative sometimes. Pema Chodron said in a talk once, you can feel confident that however you feel in this moment, at least 6 million other people on the planet feel the same way. So that might be helpful for you. But it seems to me that the emotions we don't allow, the ones we deny, the ones we don't share, the ones we don't even acknowledge to ourselves, they don't go away. They just sometimes seem to display themselves in the most inopportune moments. So giving yourself time to be with empathy, doubt, even jealousy or guilt, just to feel what is true so that you don't hold on to it, so that it doesn't get stuck. So feeling the top of the right thigh drop down and keeping the breath moving deeply. Notice if your shoulders hike, if you clench your jaw. There's nothing wrong with doing that, but notice and then see if it's necessary. See if you could actually liberate that energy. Let's inhale here and exhale, sigh. Go ahead and draw your hips back. You might slide the foot a little forward, roll the ankle, hinge over your leg. And then get some weight forward again. So you can walk your left foot toward your right wrist, bring your shin, bring your ankle, bring your knee to the floor. Remember, this is an outer hip stretch. It's not a knee stretch. So part of your job is to figure out how can you position your body so you feel the left outer hip and not at all the knee. So extra blanket or support under your sitting bone could be helpful. And go ahead and walk your hands forward. Again, not expecting or demanding or even wanting the two sides of your body to be the same. Letting the side be its own experience. So yeah, Rilke said in a poem, it's in the middle of a poem. It's this lovely book of poems called the Book of Hours, where he has taken on a persona. The author has taken on a persona of a monk who's gone into a monastery, who's seeking a relationship with the divine. And he's talking to another monk, a younger one, who is confused and confronting some challenges. So Rilke wrote, "To that younger brother, now pray, as I, who returned from the same confusion, learned to pray. I returned to paint upon the altar those old holy forms, but they shone differently now, fierce in their beauty. So now my prayer is this: you, my own deep soul, trust me, I will not betray you. My blood is alive with many voices telling me I am made of longing. What mystery breaks over me now? In its shadow, I come into life. For the first time, I am alone with you. You, my power to feel. So perhaps awakening your power, your capacity to feel. Not numbing out, not deciding this is a good feeling or that's a bad feeling. You could only know one because of the other. According to yoga philosophy, according to the Yoga Sutras, part of the reason we as human beings suffer is because of attachment and aversion, because we're trying to cling to experiences we think bring pleasure. We're trying to push away experiences we think bring pain. But we suffer because you can't hold on. Impermanence is a reality. And you can't, no matter how big a security system you get, you can't keep pain or sadness or loss from visiting your life. So rather than strategizing a way to not feel the things you don't want to feel, learn how to be with them. Learn how to feel them. Learn how to actually appreciate this is part of being alive, part of being human. Relax your jaw, relax your tongue, your forehead. It's like the whole practice is making peace with what is. Inhale here. And exhale, sigh. Walk your hands under your armpits, press down. Lift yourself up. Go ahead and come back onto hands and knees. Drive one heel back. And then the other. And let's actually shift. So I think for this pose, Lee, you'll turn and face that way. Bring your legs out to a wide angle. You might want to sit a little bit behind your mat so your heels are on your ankle if you like. So we'll come into dragonfly pose, and you may like sitting up on the edge of a blanket for this shape. Especially if when you go to tilt forward, your pelvis doesn't come along. If you feel like your back rounds, then sitting up could be helpful. Don't engage your thighs, don't flex your feet, tuck your chin and just let yourself round forward. So feeling this in your inner thighs. The energy pathways that are believed to feed the liver and the kidneys are said to run through the inner thighs into the groins. So it's possible that these meridians are receiving some stimulation, getting some effect. Just like acupuncture or acupressure would work with the energy pathways, it's possible that yin yoga is having a similar effect. What I love about that possibility is even if you don't believe or that doesn't make sense to you that organs could rule over emotions, having a place in your body to work on particular emotions, that in itself is incredibly empowering. So the liver As an overarching generalization, the liver's emotional terrain is anger, and the kidney's emotional terrain is fear. It's not all there is. The liver is also ruling over creativity and spontaneity, but especially if it were to get out of balance, like excessive anger might be attributed or associated with that. And the kidneys, they're really about your essence, your life force, your you-ness, being alive and staying alive. So fear makes sense with the kidneys. What I love about a shape like this is that whether you're just really irritated and angry, or sort of freaked out and in a bit of a panic, this pose might be a place to visit those sides of emotions. So again, notice what comes up. Notice if your primary experience is physical, and that's fine. If your primary experience is energetic, or is mental or emotional. If you don't actually feel emotions, if you don't actually, can't actually identify emotions per se, you could look at your thoughts and wonder, you could look at your thoughts and mine your thoughts for any emotional content. Like, if you think about a particular person, what's your relationship with that person? Or how do you feel about them? It is possible that your thoughts might have an emotional flavor, and that could be a way for you to just understand yourself, maybe understand if you have aches and pains or less mobility in certain parts of your body. Not to ascribe a pathology, not to imagine that anything is wrong with you, because nothing is wrong with you. One of the overarching tenets of yoga philosophy is svadhyaya. And svadhyaya means self-inquiry. So using your whole practice to become more self-aware, to shine the light of awareness on how you are, which is always changing. Maybe beginning to connect with who you are, which is possibly unchanging, the eternal reality that you are. So inhale here, exhale, sigh. Walk your hands in and sit up and pause. It might be really helpful to use your hands to bend your knees. Yeah. And we'll do caterpillar pose. So it's like Paschimottanasana, if you know active yoga, if you're familiar with a seated forward bend. So you'll have both legs long in front of you. Again, you might sit up on the edge of a blanket or a block. Don't flex your feet, don't engage your thighs. If you sit quite high and your knees are quite high, you might slide another blanket under your knees. Or for a momently, just bring your feet to the floor. And tuck your chin and round forward. So if your hamstrings are so tight, the back thighs are so tight that you can't fold very far forward, you could start in a shape like this, which invites the curve in your lumbar spine or the whole spine. And then over time, maybe you can lengthen your legs. So again, you're welcome to use blocks in any way that they support you. You could rest your forehead, you could rest your elbows. Just let yourself melt. It can be really just so sacred, so sweet to be able to come home to yourself on your yoga mat and be with your feelings, your emotions. At any one time, you probably feel a whole bunch of different ways. And so allowing yourself to feel the ways that you feel, rather than deciding this is good, I'll share this, or this is not good, I'll hide this. Because if emotions are energy in motion, the energy doesn't go away. And so part of what we're doing in yin yoga, I believe, maybe you agree, is unleashing what's been stuck. Because it actually takes energy to keep things out of your conscious awareness. You could be draining your battery. Just like if you have your cell phone open and there's a lot of apps open in the background, those apps are draining your battery. The things that you're not willing to see, the things that you hide, they could be draining your own inner battery, your own inner reserves of energy. Among many things, you might agree that yoga is the practice of shining light on what has been dark, bringing consciousness to what has been unconscious. So seeing what's been there the whole time. And there's like a quality of acknowledging and accepting and allowing, which helps you come home to yourself. All of you is welcome on the yoga mat. Notice if you hold your breath, if you tense your shoulders or clench your jaw. Nice. Inhale here. Exhale, sigh. Walk your hands under your armpits, press down. Lift, roll yourself up. If it would feel good to bring your hands behind you and arc up your spine, do that. If it would feel good to bend your knees and windshield wiper your knees, go back and forth a few times, go ahead and do that. And then as you're ready, come to lay down on your back. You'll need a block. You'll lift up your hips and slide the block of any height under your sacrum. The sacrum is really the top of the pelvis. It's not the bendy part of your lumbar spine. It's more the bony part of the top of your pelvis. So here for a supported bridge, this is a very passive backward bend. You could keep your knees bent with your feet on the floor, or if it feels good, you could walk your legs long, and that would create a little bit more openness through your thighs and maybe a little bit more of extension in the lumbar spine. If you do this, if you lengthen your legs long, some people really enjoy how it feels turning the toes out. And for some people that doesn't feel so good in the lower back, so you could just spin your feet in a little tiny bit. Because many people sit in chairs a lot, sit at desks a lot, sit in couches a lot. We could be rounding the spine through most of our days. This is a really healthy opportunity to get the lower back to move into extension. one of the truisms, it seems, that the movement patterns that you stop embodying over time become less and less available. And so one of the reasons to move the body is so you can move the body. So move the body in as many directions as you want to be able to move the body. So you can stay here in a passive backward bend, or you could walk your feet in if they're long, press your sacrum down, and lift your legs up to the sky. So you could come into a pretty, it's a pretty passive inversion. It's like legs up the wall. It's like a supported shoulder stand. This can help the venous blood move from the legs more easily with gravity back through the pelvis, back to the heart to be oxygenated. You could separate your feet if you like, roll your ankles, squeeze your toes. Some people even enjoy lifting their arms up and almost like zombies, let the fingers just drape toward the floor. If there's the possibility that could help blood move more easily back from the arms, you could make finger fans and roll your wrists. So inhale here. And exhale, bring your feet back to the floor. So when you come out of this pose, squeeze your thigh muscles, press your feet down, even squeeze your gluteal muscles, your buttocks muscles, so that when you lift up, you're not using your lower back. Move the block out of the way. Come back down. You can, windshield wiper your knees, go back and forth a few times. So we'll practice cattail pose. Stretch the left leg long and hug your right knee into your belly. Fold the right knee all the way over to the floor on the left side. If it doesn't come all the way to the floor, rest it on a blanket or a couple of blocks. Your long leg, in this case, that's the left leg. Walk your leg behind you. Walk your leg behind you. You might even feel your navel tilt toward the floor, your pelvis tilt. Feel how it feels. Go ahead and bend that knee and see if the right hand wants to find that foot and let the foot drop. Your head could turn to the sky. Maybe your face looks to the right. If your neck is uncomfortable, you could place a block or a blanket underneath your head. Are you reasonably comfortable, Lee? Yeah. If you want to, that leg that's in front of you, the right knee, you could extend the right leg straight out to the side. If it takes a lot of effort to keep it there, or you just don't enjoy it, you don't have to do that. There's so many things in the course of the day that you might have to do that right now you don't have to do that. The heart and the lung and the pericardium meridians run through the upper arm, the front of the chest. The large intestines and small intestine energy pathway, the meridian, runs along the back of the body. I love the possibility that coming to your yoga mat could actually be a way to develop a relationship with your organs, which you might only really think about if they're not working so well. And so there's a possibility that you could have a physical practice that might actually energize and improve the function of the organ itself, or at least perhaps the emotion associated. Like, no emotion is bad. They give vividness, they give flavor, they give meaning to life. If they get conflated or denied, then they can cause some distress. But really, you want to let your emotions move, just like you could Imagine your field of consciousness is like the sky, right? It's vast, it's boundless. And maybe your emotions are like weather patterns. They move through the sky, but they can't stain the sky. And so you could enjoy the rainstorm, the hail, the rainbow, the bright sun, without preferring, like the four seasons of your emotions. There's something so nice about a yin yoga practice in which, even if it's challenging or intense at different points throughout, at some point by the end, there's just this feeling of relief, of like letting go of the extra effort. Go ahead and release your foot if you're holding it. Lengthen that leg, roll back onto your back. Pause for a moment between sides. If you didn't feel much in the twist, maybe you feel the swirl of energy now. And then as you're ready, extend the right leg, bend the left knee into your chest, fold the left knee over to the right side. Yeah, get it all the way to the floor. The long leg, walk that leg behind you. Maybe your navel tilts, your pelvis tilts. Bend that knee. See if the left hand can find the foot. Yeah, and then your gaze could be to the sky or to the left. The heart is said to rule over joy. You might ask yourself, what is your relationship with joy? Can you make it happen, or do you just discover it? The lungs are said to rule over grief, which is the normal human response to loss. It's not a pathology. And you might ask yourself, how do you grieve? How do you let yourself grieve? Do you let yourself grieve? So thoughts like clouds shape-shifting through the vast blue sky space of your mind. Emotions like weather patterns. Your heart like the sun rising to illuminate. The whole practice perhaps just giving you a sense of peace. So feeling alive may have something to do with your emotions. And so letting yourself feel your emotions doesn't mean necessarily expressing them, acknowledging them to yourself. Letting them move through you. Perhaps emotions have like a flavor, bitter or sweet or sour or pungent or spicy. Children like sweet food, or they have a very simple palate, but adults, we have more sophisticated palates. So you could increase your palate for emotions. You could really savor the full flavors of your emotional palate. and utilize them to connect with your aliveness. Being alive is not a concept, it's not a thought. Being alive is a visceral, embodied experience, perhaps revealed through your feelings. Last few breaths. And then go ahead, release your foot if you're holding it. Let that leg go long, roll back onto your back. Yeah, if it feels good to draw your knees in for a moment or rock a little bit side to side. And then as you're ready, coming into Shavasana. And treating Shavasana like it's a tremendous treat. Like tucking yourself in as gently, as tenderly as you might put a toddler down for a nap. So making sure you're comfortable. And even feeling your connection with the earth. You might even imagine you could feel the pull of gravity. And imagine that gravity is like a hug from Mother Earth. Knowing yourself to be so precious to her, she's unwilling to let you go. And so you can completely surrender into the tender embrace of the planet that supports and sustains and nourishes you. And give yourself a few minutes just to completely let go, to feel supported, to feel held. To integrate your practice. And to really feel fully alive. Whenever you're ready, you'll gently wake yourself up, not rushing anything, and give yourself even a few moments of quiet sitting to feel the effects of your practice before launching into the rest of your day.